Hi friends, Holistic Travel Nurse Naomi here. In this video, this is an educational video just for you on this product. Now this is the vegan form, but on dōTERRA's lifelong vitality supplement. This is a few physicians and one of the owners talking about this amazing product. I've been taking them for about 3 years. I actually ran out and then my order was late because of all of Irma and the hurricane and stuff, and I can't tell you how much I was waiting for these, because running out means that I had chronic pain come back, I couldn't sleep that well, I had no energy, I could not believe. And I do other stuff, I do some other natural stuff, I have some other supplements I could take, but I've taken supplements like all my life off and on, and nothing compared to these. So I am like this huge nerd and I have to know science, and so I love these kind of talks where I can share it with you. If you love science, stay tuned. And if you want a review of this product and you want the down and dirty and why this is the #1 selling product, keep watching. And at the end of the video, you'll see me again and we'll talk further about this. And hope that this video helps you.
And that's why we included the essential oils in the Z Omega product. One of the reasons is because they're very powerful antioxidants, especially that clove. Clove is one of the more powerful antioxidants that we can use safely internally. If you look at the sum of the antioxidant capacity in the lifelong vitality pack, if you're taking the whole thing on a daily basis, you're getting the equivalent of over 12 servings of fruits and vegetables in your daily consumption of the lifelong vitality pack. So that's a huge amount, a great insurance policy, along with eating lots of fruits and vegetables, that you're balancing that oxidative stress in your cells. And if we can lower that stress on our cells, then we can help lower that defensive response in our cells. Okay, the next thing we do in this aging equation is we said, what could we do nutritionally? And an exhaust is a byproduct of that chemistry. Well, of course, nature would provide an answer, and that answer comes in the form of some stable molecules that we call antioxidants. And antioxidants have electrons to spare. And when they come in contact with free radicals, they share their electrons, they neutralize those free radicals, and everything's fine, okay? Then we avoid some of that damage and that stress from those free radicals in our cells. Now, just like free radicals, antioxidants have outside sources and inside sources, okay? We depend on to get antioxidants from the foods that we eat, especially our fruits and vegetables, okay? Milkshakes aren't high sources of antioxidants, all right? Unless you put some in there, I guess, but our body also depends on our own internal production of certain classes of antioxidants, okay? So what can we do to balance that oxidative stress in our cells? Well, I hope it's obvious the first thing we can do is eat more fresh fruits and vegetables, okay? It's the colorful fruits and vegetables that we consume usually have high levels of these wonderful variety of antioxidants, and integrating fruits and vegetables in a large way into your diet is a great investment you can make, both in your longevity and also your short-term vitality, okay? But we know that's not always possible. It's also prudent to consider using a dietary supplement that has high level of these important antioxidants. And the Lifelong Vitality Pack represents a super antioxidant cocktail of some very important classes of very powerful antioxidants, okay? And those are or outside sources of antioxidants, but we also have an ingredient in the Alpha CRS product. It's an extract of milk thistle that has been standardized to an active compound that we call silymarin. And why that's exciting, although it does function as an antioxidant, it also works to upregulate the production in the liver of a ubiquitous internal antioxidant that we call glutathione. And that's a very important antioxidant that's used all the time in all of our cells. So that's why we've included that extract of milk thistle. Now, Dr. Hill talked today about some essential oils that have, and I'm going to explain this quickly, and Dr. Leverance is going to come out and go a little bit deeper dive on this. But discomfort is actually a perception that we have from some type of stimulus to our cells, okay? So pain is actually in response to a stimulus that we call, or a response that we call inflammation. Okay, this is just a simple cartoon of a cell. When our cells encounter some type of a stimulus, messages are sent to the DNA, the nucleus of our cell. This is a very, oversimplifying this, but then there's messages that go back out, there's a response to that. And as we age, there are different stressors that can accelerate that aging process and can increase kind of those aches that we have and those pains as we get a little bit older, or as we aren't following good healthy practices, okay? So there's a very common stressor that's associated with this accelerating the aging process that we call free radical stress or oxidative stress on our cells. So I hope you all know this, but what is a free radical? All right, is this a free radical? It's not, right? Free radicals are molecules that have one or more unpaired electrons, and that makes them unstable. If you remember, your molecules like their electrons to be in pairs. So a free radical molecule, when it comes in contact with another stable molecule, can steal or rip that molecule from that stable molecule, turning it into a free radical molecule, and that leads to a destructive chain reaction of what we call oxidation. All right, and when that happens on a cellular level, that causes some problems. Now, where do they come from? Well, there's outside sources of free radicals that come from even the sunlight that we're exposed to, but from different pollutions and toxins that we might take into our bodies. But there are also internal or intrinsic sources of free radicals. In fact, the greater stress in your body, oxidative stress in your body, comes from the internal production of free radical molecules in our cells. And that's because in our cells we have little structures, that we call the mitochondria. And the mitochondria are the little engines in our cells that produce a chemical that we call ATP. In the mitochondria, we combine the oxygen we breathe and the food that we eat, and we produce this chemical called ATP. And ATP is an energy chemical that drives all energy, all action in your life, okay? And that's a great thing. But just like a car engine, there's an exhaust to that process, and that exhaust comes in the form of free radical molecules. And again, when that is happening in your cells, and it can damage and put oxidative stress on your cells, and particularly we want to be concerned about the damage that it might be doing to the DNA in the nucleus of our cells. And if we don't
Really good to be here, it truly is. It's a little bit bright, so I apologize, I can't see you very well. That is a super disorienting way of walking onto the stage, because when I give lectures and things like that to colleagues in my residence, it's a whole lot of silence. You stand up, no one says anything. You give your talk, no one says anything. You sit down, no one says anything. And neurologic systems and your cardiovascular systems and things like that, and you want them to do their jobs as optimally as possible, and for that to be able to optimize the nutrition at the cellular level, then and only then, I believe, you have the greatest chance of optimizing the function of your essential biology. What I nail down for you is the critical importance of balance when it comes to cellular physiology. So in a lot of ways and in a lot of circumstances, your body is way more interested in having balance of its inputs and materials and nutrients and things like that, rather than the absolute amount. The absolute amount matters insofar as you might have way too many or way too few, but as long as you're within those physiologic parameters, then it's really, really interested in balance, okay? The problem is, I think it's probably not too far away from obvious. The problem is a lot of us don't spend a lot of time within those reasonable physiological parameters. As I said, at its core, the omega-3, or the Z-omega is really just an omega-3 supplement. And that's important for a couple of distinct reasons. And the first is that omega-3s are good for you in their own right. It's pretty simple, they're just good for you. But way more importantly, and this is where I want to spend the majority of our time, the omega-3, or what's more important than that is the fact that your body is as compared to omega-3s. So let's elaborate. Your body is way more interested in that ratio than it is, again, in the absolute amount of either. So both omega-6s and 3s cannot be made endogenously. They cannot be manufactured by your body. They are dependent on what you get through your diet, okay? So omega-6s, the problem with them is that they're way too easy to get. They're in basically everything that the average American eats day in, day out, multiple times a day. They're in most vegetable oils, they're in grain-fed or kind of cheaper meats, they're in conventional eggs, they're in processed food, they're everywhere, okay? So you can get way too many of them totally unintentionally. By comparison, omega-3s are substantially harder to get. They're not impossible by any stretch of the imagination, but they come from more unique sources. So the two most physiologically powerful and important omega-3s are EPA and DHA, and they primarily come from marine sources, things like salmon, tuna, herring, mackerel, anchovies, things like that. I love salmon, I eat it as much as possible, but it's kind of unique. ALA is also another important omega-3. It's a little easier to get, but it definitely trends more towards the hippie spectrum of foods, where you're eating lots of walnuts and flax seeds and hemp seeds and things like that, and plus some excellent vegetables like Brussels sprouts, kale, and spinach. It's a good one. It's not quite as powerful as EPA and DHA, but it's a good one nonetheless. So here's where the consequences start to accumulate. We get a ton of omega-6 fatty acids totally unintentionally and involuntarily, just by eating sort of like a regular human being here in America. And even if you're trying to get omega-3 fatty acids, it's still hard to get enough. So we're left with this bereft, lopsided ratio where we get 10, 15, 20, or even 30 times more omega-6s than omega-3s, when your body really wants that to be a balanced, neutral ratio. So we are way out of balance if we eat like the average American, okay? And again, I keep putting emphasis on diet because we don't make these. They are completely dependent on what we put in our bodies. So it really is what you're eating that matters so much. So if we fall out of this neutral ratio, real consequences start to accumulate. And if you're curious about where on the spectrum of falling out of balance things start to accumulate, it's when we get to around a ratio of 3 or 4 or 5 to 1. That's where the studies start to indicate that we start to actually see measurable consequences. And as you can see, we're way more than that. So one of the consequences is that omega-6s and omega-3s both require access to the same metabolic enzymes. And if you have 15 times more 6s than 3s in the game, then it is an unfair competition. So imagine like a soccer game. That, though, is this, and this language is intentional, okay? And I'll define the terms here in a minute. But excessive or disproportionate omega-6 consumption invariably, inevitably, and obligatorily, just based on the physiology, leads to dramatically increased expression of pro-inflammatory cytokines. So cytokines, you may have already heard, you may already know this, cytokines are little signal molecules or messenger molecules that are sent out to send messages of a variety of different natures. Pro-inflammatory cytokines are little signal molecules that are sent out saying, hey, there's a problem here, we need to recruit some help to the area. And so inappropriate or excessive omega-6 consumption compared to omega-3 consumption, again, just based on the chemistry, absolutely obligatorily results in the release of way more pro-inflammatory cytokines than we need. And this sets up a real problem. In this case, these messenger molecules are bombarding your body incessantly with what are functionally distress signals. They are constantly, non-stop sparking inflammatory cascades, keeping them going like a perpetual motion machine. And we generally eat 2 to 5 times a day, and if we eat like we normally do, then what happens is we basically are just volunteering our hand to keeping this motion machine, this merry-go-round of bad physiology just spinning and spinning and spinning. Now, acute inflammation is a good thing, okay, if it's approved by talking about the metabolic syndrome, which is a term that many of you may know, some of you may not, especially in your encounters with physicians. The reason for that isn't because we're trying to keep the metabolic syndrome from you, but because we generally try to be a little more specific with our patients and talking about some of the individual diseases that kind of lay within the world of the metabolic syndrome. But you would recognize this. This is diabetes, high blood pressure, cholesterol and lipid derangements, vascular disease, a strongly increased predisposition to cancer, obesity and weight problems, cognitive dysfunction, and even poor emotional health and behavioral health. And chronic system and function and your inflammatory system and function are deeply and inextricably intertwined, okay? They are not exactly the same thing, but they rely on a lot of the same machinery, and there is so much overlap. It's sort of like what we just had with the eclipse. It's like a near total eclipse. You take the Z omega, then all of these problems will go away, because neither of those are true statements. But I definitely want you to understand that this is a concrete example of a concrete phenomenon with concrete consequences, okay? All right, so you've probably deduced the rest. The Z omega is attempting to try and balance this ratio, both by providing an excellent stream of omega-3 fatty acids, but also it needs to work in conjunction with you voluntarily decreasing your consumption of omega-6 fatty acids and try and bring us as close to this neutral 1-to-1 ratio based on the pathophysiology that we just discussed. So to a certain extent, we see reduced triglyceride levels in people taking omega-3 fatty acids or have a higher increased intake of omega-3 fatty acids. It sort of depends on the person and their age and other diseases and things like that. But more importantly, as importantly, or I guess depending on who you are, more importantly, we also see a general tuning down of this chronic inflammatory state, and the benefits are pretty widespread, including what we have observed as a reduced risk for developing cardiovascular disease and cerebrovascular disease. And again, the degree to which it reduces your risk is extremely variable, but we have definitely observed that risk. We see improved mental health, behavioral health, cognitive health. We also see improved bone and joint health and reductions in this admittedly vague. Your body likes your omega-3s and your omega-6s at a certain ideal ratio. It likes the same thing when it comes to vitamins and minerals. So your physiology really does have a defined preference for optimal ranges of each of these. And we have every reason to expect that your cellular biology has the highest likelihood of working optimally when these nutrients are available in these balanced levels, in these reasonable levels. And it's with that attitude that doTERRA has formulated the microplex, and this is something I appreciate so much. They have really eliminated that more is always better sort of approach to the formulation here, and instead they've prioritized balance. This is why I think doTERRA has taken the extra time to appreciate the chemistry here, and they've really prioritized formulating these in a way and presenting them to the body in a way that your body's actually going to recognize it as food, instead of just distilling it down to the molecule, filling a capsule and handing it to you, okay? So really, really important. Now, I've reserved the rest of the time for alpha CRS. And admittedly, I'm going to go a little bit long here. I hope that doesn't offend anyone. I think we were running ahead of schedule before. But this is where we get this is where we get the most questions, and this is where we have the most curiosity. And this is the one I find most fascinating and unique. So this is where I really want to kind of park and talk about it. So doTERRA refers to the alpha CRS as its cellular vitality complex. Defend the cell, particularly against oxidative damage and oxidative stress. So we're going to talk about cellular energy production first. And to do that fairly, we have to kind of differentiate between two concepts, and we're going to circle back to it in a minute. The first is exogenous provision of energy, which is not an ideal circumstance, because what that means is essentially you're providing sources of energy sort of as a stimulant to your body that it cannot and does not manufacture itself. And it's sort of like caffeine. Caffeine's a good example. You take it in, it tickles some receptors for a few minutes or a few hours. It makes you feel like your body's kind of coursing with energy for a little bit. And then, unfortunately, it's not sustainable. It leaves you kind of depleted afterwards. There's nothing substantive about it. In contradistinction to that, you have this endogenous production of energy, which is basically the simple fact that your body comes already well equipped with profoundly powerful mechanisms to create and manufacture its own energy. And I think you would agree with me that that's a preferable place. Bioreactors, they're near ubiquitous. They're in virtually every single cell of your body. And they produce energy, as Rob was alluding to, through a very complex, elegant series of biochemical reactions. Okay, so we'll say ALA for short, so we don't have to say that the whole time. It's been studied for a lot of different things, but we're going to kind of try to constrain our thoughts here. It is a critical cofactor, which you can think of as being an assist molecule, kind of like a sous chef in a kitchen. It's a critical cofactor for these what's called mitochondrial respiratory enzyme complexes. And these are the molecules that actually do the work, or most of it, of energy production in this process. Membrane, by measuring something called the mitochondrial membrane potential. So you can imagine if that membrane is kind of broken down or decaying, then you're not going to have, or that would be surrogate evidence of the fact that that process is sort of becoming beleaguered or broken down. Do it here. There is some preliminary data that suggests that ALA supplementation may actually enhance this process called mitochondrial biogenesis. Biogenesis is a fancy way of saying making more, so more mitochondria. Where this really becomes interesting is, Rob already told you that as a natural process of aging, through no fault of anyone's, you have a decline in the function and the number of your mitochondria. And this is one that I actually already have a fair amount of baseline familiarity with, because I use a very similar molecule therapeutically in some very specific clinical circumstances in the world of toxicology, which I deal with pretty frequently in emergency medicine. So I really enjoy it. In fact, I give a lecture to the residents from time to time on this molecule and when to use it. It's a little bit tricky and interesting. But this is another molecule that sits right there on the mitochondrial membrane and is integral to the function and the process of mitochondrial respiration. And its job is to help kind of shuttle some fatty acids into these energy producing pathways. There's no debate about that. So again, the question is targeted supplementation with Alcar been demonstrated to improve mitochondrial function or output? And again, it seems that it has. So one way that we've looked at this, has been looked at a lot of different ways, but one way that we've seen is that Alcar supplementation has been demonstrated to increase mitochondrial mass and structure. So by trying to make peace, not war, and it brings peace with these antioxidants. And Rob already explained to you how, so I won't belabor the point. So it's no secret that alpha-CRS provides a whole bunch of antioxidants that are extremely well evidence-based and supported, and pretty unique actually, and we're going to dip into that a little bit. But what's interesting is not necessarily the fact that it provides you antioxidants, it's how it does this that I find so fascinating. And this is where we're going to try and bring it full circle. So you have all these different sources of oxidative stress, from the air you breathe to UV rays you're exposed to, stress, whether it's emotional or physiological, in the way they induce instability in neighbor molecules and sets off this extremely destructive chain reaction that can result in a lot of problems. One of them is like destroying certain compounds in the cell wall, which can actually lead to cell death, which is actually a little bit less consequential than it sounds. It sounds a whole lot more horrifying than it is. Where we really get concerned, though, is if we see damage to your genetic material. And your genetic material lives in a couple of different places, your cell's nucleus and also the mitochondria. And that's what we really worry about. That's what we want to protect at all costs. So the name that we give to the consequences of these free radical molecules is oxidative stress. And it is one of the mechanisms behind chronic inflammatory states, cardiovascular disease, some of the mechanisms of aging, cancer, especially when you get abnormalities in the code of the genetic material involved.
As you can recap in these slides, these supplements are giving your cells exactly what they need. You're feeding your body material it can use to heal and maintain good health. You know, this is about long-term benefits from short-term benefits. And we want to think about our health and staying away from chronic illnesses. Okay, is your head going to explode because of all that amazing science? I know I love science and I love knowing, okay, well, I'm using something, but why? Why is it working? Why are these changing my world? So I love that kind of stuff, and I'd like to share it with others that maybe are kind of similar to me, going like to ask why, you know? So a few things about taking these. Now, this is the vegan form. The vegan form is $10 more than the actual form, and that is because it doesn't have like any of the fish oil. It's just all, it's the first product I've ever known that done an omega, you know, that is completely vegan and all fish. And unless you're like actually putting flaxseed sealed or flaxseed oil, which I tried. The flaxseed oil is so disgusting to take it orally. I don't know if anyone else has tried it. It's gross. So that's the form. Now, let's tell you about how you can get these in the best way. Now, you want to join and save because you're going to get at a wholesale price. And there's a wholesale customer or the wellness advocate with the website you're going to see below. Either way, you'll want to join and get it at the best price, because then these are $89. The other prices are up. Now, the coolest thing ever, or actually the other one are $79. The coolest thing ever is that if you went to like GNC and tried to purchase everything that's in here, I mean, if you were trying to go, oh, well, I want to get a really good multivitamin. I'm already on a good multivitamin. Okay, well, then you're going to try to get everything that's in this bottle alone. I swear is like over $100. Because I did the research. I was just very curious. And I mean, all the things that are in this bottle, like, it counts for getting you the rest of it free. Because this is amazing, a supplement. And then the cool thing ever is doTERRA really cares about your health, because you can custom your order. So you purchase this in the loyalty award program, and there's a video just on that. And then you can save money and add your Terra enzymes. And if you don't understand why you need Terra enzymes, there's a video on gut health that I kind of explain it, and I will do further on gut health than anyone that has ever had a gallbladder out. Anyone with a history of cancer should be on these. The other thing that's key is that if you are on a probiotic, if your gut flora is not really good, and like most people have an overgrowth of one particular bacteria that you shouldn't, and that can change so rapidly, bacteria changes, then you need to be on a probiotic. And why? Because if you don't have the right gut flora, then you're not even going to break down some of the things you eat or nutrients that you're taking in internally right, going to be absorbed well. So that you can add these to your product, like, you get this more discount if you add this into your product. And I'll do just a video just on this showing you how to order it, or you can message me and I'll show you, and you get these at a better price. And why these are better probiotic, you can see a video again on gut health. I won't go over that. I am going to go over the women's, the women need to be on more calcium, and you're not quite getting enough in this for as much calcium that you need to be taking extra in a supplement every day. It's very important after a certain age. And I really like this product. One, it's a capsule form like most of theirs, and the other thing is your body's going to see it natural, in a natural form. So this is their women's products, and their extra bone nutrition is what I was going to say. That's so crucial. And the other thing is, make sure you're taking this at night. Now, a few other little things of people about taking these. Some people want to start out slow, because you'll kind of do some detoxing. Your body will let go of some of the things it doesn't need when you start taking these, because these are like super incredibly for your body. So I started with like one a day. Now, some people have actually had some upset stomach or going to the bathroom more with alpha CRS. So if you do have a problem with the alpha CRS, don't take that. You can add in and just buy the vitamin and the omega-3s, and you can add in the deep blue polyphenol complex, which is another supplement that is really great for anyone in inflammation. Now, say you have some autoimmune disease, you have more inflammation with you, then you can up your doses of certain things, especially up your doses of this, and you're gonna feel different. You can try it, and then just, hey, they have a money back guarantee. You buy it, you take it, you send it. If it doesn't help you, you can send them empty and you'll get your money back. I literally went to a doctor, people, and I was so tired of telling doctors what I was taking when I was going through some wrist stuff, and I had a ganglion cyst on my nerve, and I had to see a couple different doctors, and I got tired of like telling them. So I brought the booklet that if you want to read more of the stuff, I can send you. And this doctor's like, I take a lot of this stuff. And I'm sure he's spending over $200 and he can afford it because he's a physician. And I go, well, yeah, but does yours have a money back guarantee? He goes, nobody does. I'm like, yeah, there's somebody that does. So that's why they have a money back guarantee, people. The percentage of people that actually return them is so low because these change people's lives. I've had countless people tell me how their energy level goes up. Actually, my uncle, hey, Uncle Bob, I'm going to use you on the spot, sees the doctor. My dog's trying to get in the video. And the doctor's like, man, your labs, I mean, it's like you're decreasing in age, is what he told him. And he goes, what are you doing? What are you doing? Take it. Bring it in. I want to know more. And so he has to bring all the vitamins and the data in on this because he's literally seen the difference in his lab work, people. We also did with my husband. My husband saw the lab work difference in his, and just looking at some blood levels. So they're amazing product. I wouldn't stand behind anything that wasn't, and I don't go without them. So I will give you details, instructions below about like joining or purchasing at a wholesale customer, because that's the price you want. Oh, I almost forgot. The coolest thing ever is the loyalty reward program. Say, because you need to be taking these on a monthly basis. So you start purchasing them, and then you start enroll, and you're going to earn 10%, and you order them monthly in the loyalty reward program. That's the only way you want to purchase things. There's another video on that, but you start earning, and it's like you purchase this, so you're already with your shipping, and with this at 10%, you're like getting $19 of free products. That's $19 free to spend on whatever oil or us women, whatever skincare thing you want to try of theirs. So that's really, really, really cool. And then it's going to earn up to 30%. I'm at 30%, so I'm pretty much get like $30 back every time I put my loyalty reward program or a loyalty reward order in, just for my supplements alone. That's $30, like $30 in product points. That's pretty cool, people. The other cool thing is there's too many other supplements to talk about. One other is, say you really need to burst your energy, you can take these. I don't take them because they have some ginseng in them, but people that do, man, they have so much energy. So you only need one a day, and you want to really burst your energy. Try these. Tell me how they, I want to hear the amazing story from you, what they've done for you. Please comment below. Please subscribe, like my channel, and God bless.